take a slide, find your zone every day. Find your zone every day. Take a slide, find your zone every day.
And I was muted. Oh my God, amazing. What's going on, you guys? It's Dollar Cost Crypto here with Sailor Moon. A Bitcoin macro story. What's going on? Yeah. Shout out to you guys. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and welcome to the serenade. Replay the intro? Maybe, just maybe. Shoo! What's going on, you guys? The cobbler making all the money. Cobbler's making all. Shoo! What's going on, you guys? I'm gonna say hi to the chat for a minute, and then I'm gonna get into this. Welcome to Bitcoin story time, for sure. But millionaire, what's going on? Shout out Moon Gang, baby. Kyle won. When Pulse Chain launches, I'm retired. I'm gonna like a dog. Amazing. I don't trust weekend pumps, but I'll take it. Hey, I'll take it too, man. I mean, yeah, right now in terms of the Bitcoin price, we're at $44,000, which is pretty nice. Obviously, if you look at some of the market sentiment in terms of BTC, it looks like we're at probably about a $3,000 Bitcoin price. The way people are acting. But no, I really wanted to do this stream right here, Bitcoin and macro story, just to kind of give you guys like the way I look at Bitcoin and kind of my ups and downs with it. It's not been an easy journey, and it's each cycle that happens in crypto is the same but a bit different. So every cycle rhymes, but it's not the same cycle in a way, right? So I guess let me start this off by saying, I came into crypto in 2016, December of 2016 is when I first started putting money into crypto. Pretty much came in at the really hot part of the market, basically. I would say the bull market really started in early 2016 for the market, but it pretty much topped out at November, December of 2017, and then you had the prices kind of holding up for maybe the first quarter of 2018, and then it was just death basically for a good 2 years almost, right? Um, the market ended a little earlier for some people if they actually had the testicular fortitude to actually buy BTC back, in 2019 during February and the early part of 2019. But a lot of people didn't want to buy until it was fully like, is 10,000 broken? Once we kind of hit that point, somewhere I think it was like the middle of 2020 or the end of 2019, when we finally were comfortably over the $10,000 Bitcoin price, and people say, okay, I'm gonna take a shot on this again. But for those who watch during bear markets, that is one of the best times to ever get rich, right? I mean, we're talking about a $44,000 Bitcoin price where you could have bought Bitcoin if you didn't go away at $3,300, 4,000, 6,000, 9,000. I mean, legitimately. So even on Bitcoin gains, if you just bought an average price of $4,000, you damn near be up 11x on BTC, not including Ethereum at the time, which was roughly about $100 to $80 at the time as well. And we're talking about an Ethereum price of $3,100. So not bad, not bad. But yeah, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, you guys. Notification bell so you don't get unsubscribed. And yeah, let's get into it. So you know, it was it was a really strange thing when I first heard about Bitcoin. Um, Bitcoin, like, obviously everyone thought it was kind of like bullshit and everything like that, or it was like most people heard about Bitcoin through like the Silk Road and stuff, which was basically, people it was a cool, it was a place, you buy this coin right here, and you can use that coin to buy like weed. That was basically most people what they're thinking about when using the Silk Road. Most people were not using the Silk Road for anything other. Most people were not using it for nefarious reasons. Some people were, obviously, right? But um, the first time I had really heard about BTC was around 2011. Um, I had heard about it from one of those online article sites and stuff like that, from a story from one of my buddies. Shout out to Julio. And you know, I really wanted. I was sold at that minute. But I mean, even though I was learning a lot about like equities and stuff like that at the time, I personally didn't even have a bank account. I don't think I had a bank account until I was like 23 or so. So it was this entire thing where like I didn't even have a debit card or a credit card or anything to buy Bitcoin at the time because you needed a debit and credit card. And then, I asked my buddy, hey, bro, because I was pretty much in the cash economy at the time. I was like, dude, could you buy me like $400 of Bitcoin, man? I just want to have some and stuff so we can buy so we can buy some weed. And, you know, I would, it would have been, it was like, the thing keeps going up, right? Because we kept seeing like the price was this price and now it's this price. We're like, wow, that's crazy. Because one thing that a lot of people don't know back in the early 2010s and even like 2009 or so was that to even start some equity accounts and stuff like that. So now we have, things like Robinhood and, I would say, there's like stuff like Lending Tree and, Acorns, and there's all these financial services apps now on the App Store. But back in the day, you really didn't have much of that. You had E-Trade and you had like a Scott's Trade and stuff like that. And I remember specifically during that time, early getting out of high school, that it was you needed $10,000 to even start an account before you could even DCA. So they wouldn't allow you to start an account with $100, right? So at the time, right, that was not possible for me, right? I didn't have that kind of money, and I kept trying to save up to trying to get that money. So, this whole the barriers to entry are really terrible because it's because you just need to start. Once you start, you can grind your way up because you'll find the interest in it, basically. I spent my first BTC on a $20. That's funny, but it was quite an interesting time, right? So, obviously my friend said, like, he's like, I don't know how to do it, which pretty much a lie, basically. I think he just was lazy about it. And I didn't really hear about it again until about maybe 2015. And Obviously, I heard the price went up to like $1,000 and crashed back down, and then I was like, oh damn! I was like, oh crap! If I had bought it, I was like, if I had anything that would have gone up to $1,000, I'd be in it basically because I know myself. So I was like, oh shoot, oh well, guess I missed the boat, right? And then at the time, I finally saved up enough money that I was able to start an account because a couple years after that, they lowered the minimums to 5,000. So I was like, I saved up, and then I basically started, my $5,000 investment, and then started investing into equities and stuff. And then eventually, you had the beginning of Robinhood, and then I signed up to that right away and started investing through Robinhood. And I used to watch a bunch of these financial YouTuber guys from on the equities market side, especially one guy early on, which was Jeremy from the Financial Education Channel. Cool dude. He had the white. This back in the day when I think he still worked at I think it was Quick Trip or just Quick Trip. He was a manager there or something like that. And I thought he was a smart guy and everything like that. He probably only had like 3,000 subscribers at the time. And I was like, oh, this guy seems like kind of down to my level, and started getting the whole like, he's getting the whole like millennial stock game. So I'm like, cool. So I followed him and stuff like that. And then I was able to, really get into things like Fresh Pet and a bunch of these other stocks, and then of course Apple and Disney, because I never forgot, like, you get like I learned a lot of good lessons from the market, because like there's some stock managers and stuff that will not touch popular stocks because they're like everyone's touching them, so it's like I don't look cool enough, to be in those stocks. But sometimes those really are the best ones, right? Like there's like dudes like Apple pretty much performed 20 to 30, 40% a year, year on year for holding Apple. And it was like holding Apple as an equity was like a fucking no brainer. And these guys were not doing that because it was Apple. It was like, oh no, I want to look cool because I get you into the cool stuff that's making all the gains. But sometimes like you got to pick up some of those like easy gains, right? So, and at the time, so this I think he's changed his tune now, but back in the day, he was Jeremy from the Education Channel and stuff like that. Shout out to Jeremy. He was hating on Bitcoin a little bit because I was watching all those. I was watching every single video he was coming out with, and just to listen stuff because I was working. I still was running my I was still running my like my landscape businesses and everything in my irrigation businesses, and I would listen to like some of his videos, and then he would occasionally people would ask him about crypto, and he's like, I don't know, Bitcoin's bullshit, it's a bubble, it's a Ponzi, all that jazz, right? And then eventually he just like what happened is him and I'm so sorry, I can't remember the other. I was watching two or three other guys here and there for news, and eventually I just like the the consistent shitting on it piqued my interest to the point where I was like, all right, what's up with this Bitcoin thing? Like, is it really coming back? And I looked into it. I was like, whoa, this thing's like back to life. Holy shit! I think what's this? I think it's $800 right now. Wait, hold on. And then I look back at the time when I was like, I think I saw Bitcoin at maybe like $1 or $2 or something like that, if I remember right. So I was like, geez, I did the math on that. I was like, I did the math of like, if I took let's just say I bought $200 a week, so I had $200 left of BTC. I probably would have just kept it in there because I don't smoke that much. And then I divide that by $2, and I multiply that by 800. I would have $80,000. Oh my god! Oh my god! And then this this is some of the the stuff that went through my brain. I was like, whoa, these guys are fucking wrong. Like he's wrong. And I was like, wow, holy crap. So it's this whole thing where like, this is something that I learned from like quite a lot of people and stuff, like if you really don't want to give something hype, you don't mention it at all. Right. So, thanks to him, thanks to Jeremy and stuff like that, he was like, obviously he was an equities channel, so of course he wants to talk about equities. So you get annoyed by questions about some other stuff, which I totally understand. But through the haterade, I was able to like, holy crap, BTC. Yeah. So yeah, good to know Miguel was a normie once. Yeah, I was, man. For sure, for sure. We all start there, man. This is what crypto does for you, man. Crypto is upwards mobility, through and through. It's upwards mobility through and through. So once I was like, okay, I kind of was like, I was making good money in the equities market, and um, I was making 20 on average. I was probably going like 27. Most years I was doing 27% of my portfolio, and then towards like the last 2 years, I started ranging between like 45 to 47% of my portfolio in equity. So I was like pretty cool. I was a stock picker at the time, so I was like doing pretty good. Overall for the portfolio, I had some stuff that went up to 300%. I did pretty decent with Fresh Pit, and of course Apple and stuff like that. And then I had a little Netflix. What else did I have? I had Home Depot and things like that and everything like that. So I never went over like a. I think the most stocks I ever had at one point was maybe 12 at most. So it was doing pretty well with that. So I'd always been a stock picker. I hadn't been much of a mutual fund guy, even though I had tried that out through like things like Acorns and stuff like that. Like I used the Acorns app and things like that. Essentially, this is where I really got the concepts of dollar cost averaging. So I took a lot of the common sense things that did work in the equities market and then applied that to crypto, which most of the crypto guys during 2016, even most of, I would even say up to like quarter 3 of 2017 downwards, you didn't have the practicality of a lot of the equities, like tried and true methods that actually worked in equities in crypto. So, using, I mean, obviously you would dollar cost average, you dollar cost average without even knowing it technically, really, because like you're just buying consistently when you get your money, you're either increasing your average or lowering your average pretty much, right? So I couldn't, I was like, whoa. I was like, wow, like, simple practices is like, obviously you don't want to be buying green candles. You want to, like, when the prices go down and you actually believe in the equity or the stock or the crypto, then you DCA into it. But, the market was quite different at the time. So there wasn't much, analysis of it. So what I did is like during the 2017 cycle, during the 2017 cycle, the fundamentals were pretty, you know, pretty hazy there, man. I mean, it was like between, like vapor. It was like a thin line between vaporware and a real project, and that was like on everything, Ethereum included, like everything, Bitcoin. I mean, it was all just like a hazy line, and I think this is one of the reasons why you had so much bullshit. Where like versus this cycle, it's a lot more versus it's more greed. Like sometimes we invest in the projects knowing that they're kind of bullshit, but like the greed, and then there's like a game theory to it. So you like everyone's playing a game that everyone's kind in the background knows like it's a game. We're all like kind of like dun. We're all playing musical chairs a little bit with some of these projects. Some, obviously not the whole portfolio, right? Because there's a bit of portfolio distribution and stuff like that, and like protection. But people take shots versus back then, it all looked like bullshit, which was quite so like I got to see like the actual maturation of like peak coins being just nothing but white papers, and like if we're lucky a shitty website. I mean like like no working product, all promises, bullshit basically, and like like $500 million market cap. Especially when the market was way smaller at the time. So that should let you know how inflated things were at the time. So, um, yeah, it's just that sort of thing. So so as so from there, right? I mean, I'm just this is DCC probably in August of 2016. I'm just looking at Bitcoin. Obviously, I haven't invested, but I just keep hearing a couple of the I'm starting to hear bubblings because I'm in the equities market and I'm in the millennial side of the equities market, right? Which is all the millennial YouTubers who are talking about stocks and stuff, which wasn't that many. So it was a pretty sort of a tight knit sort of cunty community with each other, because obviously some of them were cool, some of them were like, that guy's not as good as me, all that jazz, right? Competitive, and I was hearing bubblings of crypto. I was hearing crypto stuff, this, crypto stuff, that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so it made me do this whole deep dive research. I researched it for 2-3 months before I decided to get in December, basically. Um, I just had this whole thing where, around Thanksgiving, I just felt like this energy of like a lot of crypto talk. And I was like, whoa, it really like, that's what really caught me because, you had a 2016 year gain of in crypto, and wasn't as large as 2017, but it was big enough where some people came home from Thanksgiving, and you had that first Thanksgiving effect that I noticed in the macro. and I was like, "Whoa, this is pretty crazy." And it was mostly centered around BTC. I very very rarely heard about like Ethereum or much other coins. I heard a little bit about Doge or Litecoin, but you didn't really hear much at all about Ethereum or any of these other coins really up until like you started getting into like I would say like April of 2017. So first thing I did is I just jumped in to the deep end of the pool and started listening to all the doctrine. So now, people who grew up in this cycle are more about yielding and everything like that. Back then, it was about percentages of the entire supply. Percentages. So 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, right? It was like that whole. It was like an era. Like I'm still tainted by it. You basically the where you get into crypto, you get imprinted basically. Just like if you there's this whole thing in the in like psychology where like depending on like when the first time you ever get sexually active or like that, you kind of build up a lot of the stuff that you actually like for the rest of your life. Basically, it's the same sort of thing in like I got imprinted sort of on the equity side from like for stock picking and things like that, and then basically over here on the crypto side, I got indoctrinated with the whole hodling, stacking sats and chill, you know, all that jazz and stuff like that, as well as like, but and sort of this whole thing about really believing in a token and stuff like that and everything like that. So obviously, funnily enough, obviously being like a stock picker and stuff like that, the first crypto I ever bought was actually Litecoin because of narratives, basically. So like this had worked for me really well in the equities market. So I was like, okay, I'm buying a coin that has 4 times more of the supply of BTC. And one day it's going to be one Litecoin for Litecoin, one BTC in value or something like that during the peak. So obviously, pretty funny now. But there was this whole thing about like dude, if you get 1 Bitcoin, you're going to be rich forever. Like there's this many Bitcoin in the world, this many Bitcoin, you guys. There's this many Bitcoins, and there's like 15 million millionaires in the world. There's not enough. There's not enough Bitcoin for all the millionaires in the world, and that's not including the billionaires, you guys. Whoa, if every millionaire in the world bought a Bitcoin, the price of BTC would be like this. That means like every Bitcoin would be equal $500 million at the time. And this was the consensus. This was the consensus across all of crypto. This was like gospel right here. Gospel, Bible. This is Bible, like this is Bible shit, like of the crypto space when it came to Bitcoin. You get that Bitcoin, you got the golden ticket, baby. You got the golden ticket. Pour no more. You will never basically, and it's still true today in a way as well. We're if you look at it in a macro story, it just was a little early on, but that whole thing was actually, it's factually correct. Yeah, it is true. If BTC stays around for long enough and everything like that, and the price gets to the something crazy, if you have a BTC, you do have intergenerational wealth. But at the time, it was pushed to the nth degree. And it was this whole thing where like, if we split up all of BTC equally, everyone around the world would have 0.008 or 0.0008% of a BTC. So if you get 10th of a Bitcoin at the time, bro, you're Gucci, basically. And this is the sort of stuff that happens, and like I got imprinted to that, and so did a lot of other people. And this is what happens. There's this thing I called that I call it cycle theory for myself. It's a working theory that I've had since about the first crypto mindset course that me and Charlie ever did, which was back in September of 2020. And basically how it goes is every single cycle has you have this upwards mobility that happens throughout the cycles. And this upward mobility that happens throughout the cycles, you end up, the people who win, right? It's this sort of thing where if you end up getting washed out, you're like, oh shit. So you end up having like this 80-20 principle on both sides. You have like 20% of the people at the bottom that get washed out because they get wrecked and like screw this thing. 60% that kind of the next 20% kind of like, okay, I'll stick around during losses. Another 20% that kind of broke even and did pretty well. The other 20% that they they made some money, and they stuck around. So you kind of have like this whole thing where like you have 60% sticking around, 40%, 20% that'll just come back once everything really recovers and more. And then the bottom 20 that never comes back until they capitulate way later on, right? So, and then the top 20 that never leaves, which is most of you guys right here. You guys are in that top 20 percentile where like win, lose, or whatever, you guys are going to stick around basically. And this is where like so this is where like all that kind of Citadel talk started happening versus like ascending the Citadel. There's only so many BTC. If you have all these BTC here, essentially you can put off the peg and stuff like that. So this was kind of like it actually was such a simplistic sort of time during that time. So during these kind of BTC cycles, because like obviously it really was just Bitcoin and a couple shit coins, really, especially back there. But I would really count the first real cycle for this macro story would be the kind of the 2013, 2015, 2016 sort of cycle, basically, where like BTC the first time it ever went to $1,000 and then took a shit. During that cycle, I mean, you're mostly a Bitcoiner, and then you had some of these guys who actually jumped in some of these like color coins, name coin, world coin, into some of these early on green coin, I mean, death coin, dark coin, all these different sort of like altcoins back in the day. And what happened was, if you look, right, people make money in the past. Like, so let's say if I made a bunch of money, if I made my money this cycle, the next cycle, you would get an evolution of that. And typically people who enter the crypto space are a two cycle winners, basically, before they kind of get arbitraged out a little bit or just kind of bow out and aren't doing as much of that anymore. So it's a working theory of mine, but I believe it to be pretty true. So basically the reason we got a 2017 was because we got a 2013. So the guys who entered the space in 2013, they invested, they had a little bit of money, $20,000, $30,000. You had money in crypto back then. $20,000, $30,000. You started investing into these kind of like shitty altcoins. And what were they? They were just like, we're like the most simplistic thing, like Bitcoin with this and that, and like, we're going to change the world, or like this, we're going to be the cryptocurrency of trees, or like even more simplistic than that, and not even a website, barely I'm talking about like Google Doc website and maybe a white paper, and then like that's it on like Bitcoin talk forums and stuff like that, and those guys who won that 20%, 40% that won all the money from doing all that sort of stuff and bought BTC, what happened was with that is that they leveled up and they weren't up the upward mobility. So what did that happen by the next cycle? It was like, wow, I made so much money off those coins. How can I make more money in the next cycle? I'll start my own coin, right? That's what happened. And of course, and then you also have guys who sold BTC at a good price and then bought back in, right? So you have all that jazz. So you have the shitcoin cycle, the shitcoin side, and then you have the BTC side, which is still the larger part of the pie. But that 20, so I would say during the time, it was 80% of the people were in BTC, 20% were in the altcoins. But the guys who won in the altcoins managed to make so much more gains and then put that back into Bitcoin, because in the whole story, the money was flowing back into BTC. Because it was just like it was a known fact that you buy altcoins to get gains to buy BTC. That was the game, basically. And it's in the larger fact, it's kind of it's evolved more into like BTC, maybe Ethereum. It's gone to other tribes, but at the end of the day, right? Like this is like kind of the beauty of it. At the end of the day, if the buck stopped here and there was this giant, like sort of huge economic crash, people would be like, what, I'm just gonna buy some BTC because it's the only thing I could think of that will survive long enough or something like that. And it's that sort of thing. So it really is the reserve asset, as well as there is assets right now that are proving themselves to this point and stuff like that. But so those guys from 2013 legitimately like upgraded themselves. And what did they do in the 2016, 2017 market? They decided to make their own tokens. And then Vitalik was one of these guys, and a bunch of other people, but basically people who kind of killed it in the earlier cycle took the money that they made it from that cycle, put it on to new projects, and then we had the evolution of what we had during 2017, which was actually, if you look at 2017 versus 2013, we actually improved. The projects actually improved up, except the problem was that like almost all the projects outside of maybe like I would say 10, 20 projects probably from that cycle outside of BTC and like Litecoin from the previous cycles were all vaporware. So essentially we went from like shitty like 2D art vaporware to like 3D art vaporware. Because you had the evolution of these guys who made projects that were vaporware. That was bullshit. So the 2013 guys, most of their shit was horse shit. And then basically what happened is the guys who won the games of the horse shit went to the next cycle in 2017 and make horse shit squared. So that's the reason why we got what we got. So we had like we had Special Olympics flute like vaporware coins, super simplistic like super simplistic copy and paste coins with almost no changes at all other than the name. And then we actually had like we actually have a website, and we actually hired some Filipino man to write our white paper. Dude, they have a white paper. Whoa, they have a website. Oh my God, this is going to take over the world. Shout out DentaCoin. We are going to make we're going to be the coin of all dentists around the world. It's because we're the guys who had made all the money in 2013. They learned all their stuff in 2013, 2012. So the guys who made all that money there, they just extrapolated out their ideas because they had more money, and they made better versions of what they saw during 2013. So it's pretty crazy. And then obviously during that time now we had sort of a thing where BTC was still like probably like 50-60% of the market versus the 80% of the market. And then we had a larger altcoin market, far larger. It was more of a game, and then it was some of the highest price appreciation in that we didn't see in a long time. Because obviously, you were able to buy BTC during 2016, like 500, the hundreds of dollars, and then obviously in 2017 we saw the all-time highs of like $19,000, $20,000 BTC, $18,000, $15,000. So massive gains of 25, 30x. 40x on BTC prices, which is amazing. And then we saw the birth of Ethereum and things like that, starting at 50 cents all the way up to $1,400. And then we had the collapse of that. And then the collapse of it was because mostly it was what was the underlying factor of it? Well, it was vaporware squared. Was most of the projects. And we had basically we had these projects all die and everything like that. Of course, BTC survived because the Vanguard, right? In terms of cycles, legitimately, we're in cycle 4 right now. We have the beginning of BTC 2009 to, I would say, the early, like mid part of 2000. I would say early 2011 would basically be the birth of BTC. Then we had the first altcoins come out 2011 to like the 13 cycle, and then we had 13 to 15, and then we had the 2016 2017 market, and then now we've entered basically the 2019, basically this cycle that we're in right now currently, depending on what you want to count it. But DeFi summer is probably more than likely where this market started, which was probably March of 2020 to now, still currently. So, and so BTC has survived through all that stuff. So you end up having it's at the end of the day, when in doubt, buy BTC. When in doubt, buy these coins. The money just flows back into BTC at the end of the day, because it's the reserve asset of crypto. And there is new incumbents and new sort of things kind of going on in the space on that. But at the end of the day, unless it outright completely gets hacked or scammed or somehow, that's not going to change. And this is kind of like the macro story that I wanted to talk about, is that depending on where you were in since the last cycle to the past, the 4 cycles in the past, really kind of shapes of how you look at the space, right? Because a guy who got in 2009, 10, 11, for the most part, they're evangelists, or they made so much money off of BTC that they don't really need to evolve anymore, because they have enough wealth already in BTC, and they've already been rich enough basically, if you got into BTC in 2010, you've been rich since 2013 probably. are pretty well off since 2013, but let's just say 2015, 2016. So the guys who really bought a lot of BTC and actually believed, which was a 5 year, 6 year sort of play for them to really like make it in crypto, where like a BTC was worth $1,000 when versus when they bought their BTC it was $1 or $5. Um, that was a 5 year total process. This is why we say it takes about 2 cycles to really get rich in the site, and then 2 cycles are typically are anywhere from you know 3 to 6 to 7 years in that range, right? But then the Bitcoiners were essentially giga rich from there. So if they've been giga rich since, let's just say, the beginning of 2017, then now they've been rich. They've been like a lot of the Bitcoiners have been uber rich for about 5 years now, really rich. So with 5 years of being that rich, obviously they've sold BTC here and there. The prices are 44,000. So if they were up, let's just say they bought at $1 and they're up, 10,000. It's at that 1,000x. Now they're up 44,000x on their capital. Even if they put a couple $1,000s into it, they're still very, very wealthy. And they've been wealthy for so long that they're essentially perma rich. That's why you have some evangelists of the early on of the Bitcoiner guys that like just don't evolve, and then you have some really smart guys, some Roger Veers and stuff like that, which I personally do think was correct about increasing block size and stuff like that, and it's shown. Um, he was kind of blackballed a little bit and did some stuff and everything, but like I think it's kind of water under the bridge now. Um, you know, has kind of evolved. And there's been a couple of these guys have evolved, some have not. It's just more of the preference of whether they want to keep growing and increasing their wealth or their relevance in the space. Because if you just stay maxi forever, eventually you get kind of dinosaured out over time. So that's kind of what I see what's going on now. And then now that we've moved into this cycle, right? So what happened in 2017 with Bitcoin, which was so amazing, is that we proved we were really an asset, right? So before I would say before we ever hit like that $1,000 mark on Bitcoin, it was just kind of like it was kind of a joke, basically. It was like, oh, okay, it was basically it was online gambling because most people heard about you heard about Bitcoin through the Silk Road, or they heard about they're using Bitcoin to essentially gamble through like poker stars and things like that. So um, those poker stars and stuff like that, and all those gambling sites and stuff, right? So it had this whole kind of connotation that BTC was kind of like a vice coin, as well as like it's kind of shadowy, codery thingy, it's dorky, it's not real, it's not really money. When it became $1,000, that's when it really hit on people. Like, oh crap. And then during that cycle you started getting obviously people who are really really wealthy in markets and stuff. They're always looking, once you start getting a lot of money, you're always looking for places to put money to work and stuff, either in like watches, cars, Rolexes, or whatever the hell you do, equities, houses, businesses. Like let me invest, let me put a little money into this little startup here. Oh, that made a lot of money. Let me put some, like, you have to keep your money working, right? Obviously, you have to keep a good amount of like that, and you have to stay within your circle of competence. But you have to. It's sort of like this game where like money is energy, and since money is energy, if the energy just stays put there, it loses energy, right? So I mean, this is where shout out to Michael Saylor, or like Sailor Moon. BTC is one of these things where over time, the inflation is almost really nothing. Really, it's like 1% inflation, um, but you can buy enough of the BTC network and stuff now that you control your energy kind of transfers over time, where you're not really losing much, and if you are, it's very insignificant, where you can really like take it over time, basically. Where if you were holding all your value in $1, you have lost so much of the value over your life. Like, I remember personally as a kid, I remember going to my mom and dad to Costco or something like that when I was really small, and literally the cart being as full as fucking possible, like filled to the brim, the carts filled to the brim, and it didn't cost $100. I remember because I would always grab the receipt as a kid, and like they put the little smiley face on there as a kid and stuff. When you would go to the store, and I remember that like it was like $87, $67. $110 because, oh shit, today we bought a shit ton of stuff. And I remember this, as a, you don't forget, you don't sort of forget some of these things as a kid and stuff. And I remember, like, just think about it now, like, you go to Costco today, $100, you got like what, like six things, seven things, versus when, like, this is, of course, I'm talking about, like, early 90s, mid 90s, $100, and you had that thing packed, son, packed to the top, filled with $100. So you have this kind of bleed out where, like, if you have, like, if money is energy, and you, in the energy, and if you just store your energy in a certain place and there's leakage, your energy just dissipates, and then basically your importance, or the energy you've been saving up to do something in the world, gets evaporated, right? Because all that money is essentially IOUs to people for services, right? Because, like, oh, I did this thing of value, and because I did this thing of value, I accrue this token, or this piece of paper, or this fiat, or this money, and this money entitles me to give them this energy to someone else and have them perform tasks for me. So back in the day, like, I fixed all the irrigation, or all the work, or I worked these many hours on this property for a week or two, made all this money, and then I can pay a plumber, like a plumber, to then fix or change my house, or a contractor, or, like, I can just go, hey, would you guys be able to paint my house? Here's this energy. And they're like, okay, and they do it for me, and I don't have to spend too much of my own time doing that, or if I don't have the skills to do that, you know. And that's kind of like the beauty of BTC, and then the beauty of, and because all the other cryptos are babies. We basically always, like, what humans are. And if you look at speech and everything we've learned is from someone else. Like, there's almost nothing really original. Most people do, but usually what the original thing is taking things that we've essentially copied from learning from other people, and then fuse them together with three, four different ways, and then that becomes a new thing. So what we're doing is we're taking a simplistic thing, then evolution or sort of happenstance happen, and then there's another thing, and then we take those two things together, and then become a new thing. And it's this whole thing where we're basically, in a way, we're just taking we're taking contracts, and then fusing them together to make smart contracts, and we're taking a group of smart contracts, and then turning that into a sort of an algorithm, and then we're taking algorithms on algorithms to make, some AI intelligence, and we're taking AI intelligence and then creating God, or our version of that, or like this omnipotent sort of thing and stuff. And I know that's kind of like going off the deep end there a little bit, but, like, that's what's kind of going on, basically. We take speech and stuff, and then speech over time evolves through slang, basically. Like, nice to meet you, what's up, what's going on, what's up, dap me up, high five, peace sign, like, nice to meet you. These things move through time, basically, through, like, the beginning of, like, just like, of what it is, you know. So, um, everything comes from BTC, and I have a lot of respect for Bitcoin for, allowing all this to happen, basically, you know. And it birthed so many things, so many mistakes, so many good things. But honestly, is the world a better place? Is the world a better place because Bitcoin was created? Yes, because without that, we would not have the coins. There's a lot of people in here that are maxis, or like, or a part of different other communities where they don't use Bitcoin anymore, which is perfectly okay. But we have to kind of give the daps up that without BTC, we would not be where we're at right now. And, and that's respect. And I got respect for Bitcoin for that, for always. And in the back of my mind, like, just in case Miguel fucks up mode, you load up a treasure with a BTC and some Ethereum, and, or you name your favorite cryptocurrency, some Hex or something like that, and put it away, and then break it, and you're like, oh my god, I got money in the future. It's that sort of thing, basically. um you know um you can only say that about a couple cryptocurrencies. And, like, if legitimately, if you put a gun to most people's heads, obviously outside of the communities and stuff like that, if the greater world, right, most people would say, like, if you had to, like, choose a cryptocurrency, and what would be the cryptocurrency you had the most confidence will be here in 10 years? Most people say BTC, or, BTC, basically, for the most part. Most people don't even know what Ethereum is. It's funny enough. So it's that kind of a thing right now. Like, right now there is no PhDs legitimately. There's a very, very small amount of PhDs and stuff in terms of blockchain, but in terms of this kind of crypto space that we're in, because it's not just blockchain, it's the tokenomics, the fundamentals, game theory, the charts and stuff like that. Like it's we're in the beginning of a new type of market that's essentially going to absorb the rest of the world as we create it. So by us being in here right now, we get in while the getting's good, as well as we build our resumes up, because 10, 20 years from now, like they're going to start trying to close it up, or like, oh, what's your experience? It's that whole thing where like you have to have a bachelor's degree and 3 years experience. Well, like, dude, how do you get 3 years experience if I don't get the job? Right? Where now we're like, you can just start and then you make your experience, and there's the barrier of entry is pretty low. It's just getting in and then understanding, and then you're in. Basically, that's the beauty of it. Like we're in a market right now where like all the soothsayers, all the people, all the incumbents are being created right now. And if you're not in right now, you're gonna be left out. So this is why like I'm so passionate about like what I do in terms of education and crypto, as well as like teaching people what I know. Because I mean, I could just be a greedy fuck and just keep all the shit to myself, and I'll be fine. I mean, I'll make money regardless. But it's a sort of thing where like if I can influence and help people get into the space, because that's what Bitcoin did for me. Is that I found out about Bitcoin. Bitcoin got me into the space, and I learned, and it improved my life so much that if I'm able to help 1,000, 10,000 people, by getting 1,000 or 10,000 people into crypto, I'm not, and they stay over time. What happens is I just don't help 10,000 people. I help an exponential amount, right? Because if you do well with crypto and it changes your life, and you learn freedom, or you get a job, or like you become an artist for some company or something in the space that improves your life in this new in sort of institution of money. Because right now we're calling things DeFi and like, oh, decentralized finance and stuff, and we're like, this is crypto sort of technology and stuff. Right now we call things like, oh, I'm in the crypto space. 20 years from now, we're just going to say I'm in the financial space. That's what we're in right now. That this is how crazy this whole thing is that like everything is going to be crypto. Everything. Everything that touches, and it started from BTC and keeps evolving from there. And BTC, I believe, will still be a huge center point and like financial backing. It's going to be our gold basically, and it's going to be the reserve asset really for a very long time, or forever basically. But it's by but well, I know for a fact over these years I'm gonna end up helping way more than 10,000 people. I mean, damn near I'm probably at 7,000 right now. That me and my business partner Charlie have done just from what we've touched, and that's 7,000 people. At least most people end up telling their brother or their family member or something less. So it's the only way where like those 7,000 people, 7,000. Let's just say it's 5 people a person. That's 35 by helping 7,000 people get in. They've helped overall 35,000, 50,000 extra people at least first time set up a wallet and and decide like, you know what, I'm gonna try it out. And it's it's just a beautiful thing too. And you're able to I'm very proud to say this. I've been able to get a lot of like Latinos, African Americans and stuff like that into crypto and stuff, because it's this I'll be really honest, it's mostly Asian and white, if I'm being just dead honest. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's never like that sort of thing. But it's the sort of thing where people sort of need role models, where like if you don't see someone that looks like you, or it has done it, a trailblazer that's done it before, then you don't know that it's possible. It's like if you break the 4 minute mile, then they're like, the 4 minute mile is possible, and then you get a string of people saying, like, people don't try because they don't think they can do, or they don't think it's possible. And like that's what Bitcoin did. Bitcoin showed what was possible. Like we don't have to trust a third party; it just works, and then you can't shut the network down. That's what's so beautiful about it. And look at all that's happened because of that. It's beautiful, you know? And it's about helping our people and stuff. And I'm not trying to make it a race thing or anything like that. But it's more this whole thing of just like just help giving helping a hand and stuff. And like I always, this is why I'm always telling people, start a channel or make a Twitter, do something, like get active and stuff like that. Because eventually what will happen is, you use some of our sources, or you do it yourself, or you get into the space. What happens over time is that you over the next couple of years, people see your success, you become their guru in a way. And then people in your family, who are your family, people that are you. And with people who are you, you now help out your community. This is how you help out. This is how you expand this thing out and stuff. And this is why I keep doing what I'm doing, because there's not many of me. You know, there's a thousands of you. There's only one of me. And then that's all you guys. There's thousands of other people, but there's only one of you. And it's up to us to change the rest of our ecosystem, because like the only way we can change the world is if we change ourselves, right? It's that whole thing where like, oh, you're on the plane and you have to put the mask on over your head first, right? That thing always tripped me out. So you put the mask, you have to help yourself out first, and then from there people can see like, oh wow, he's actually making it, right? And then from there you but here's the sort of thing, is that this is the character flaw in a way, where like, whether it's good or not, you being successful in this thing and they find out about it will cause them to either do it out of basically jealousy or inspiration, or just desperation, right? And hopefully it's through inspiration. But I know there's people that get into crypto and they're fucking cunts, if I'm just being really, really honest. So um it's it's this whole thing where like, at the worst case, you learn about crypto, you keep to yourself, and you don't help anybody. And it's the sort of thing where like, instead you didn't really better a lot of the other people around you, but at the very least you improved your life, which at the very least means you're going to go out there and find yourself a husband or a wife, and then have a family, and you've helped their lives. So at the very least, that's one thing that I'm very proud of, that like that 7,000 people that I've helped so far is in the periphery, at minimum, I've improved the lives of 35,000 people. Where like, if they're some, because obviously you don't have to be a preacher about it, or you don't have to be like knocking on doors or nothing. But if you're a sort of person that can help, like over time, over those 10-year span, it could be this whole thing where you've helped a network of people around you that you trust and stuff, and you start empowering the right people. Now you've improved the world. And it's just by, and this is that whole thing of why I do this. Me and Charlie do this. This is the greatest wealth transfer in the world. This is Bitcoin, the macro story, because no matter what happens from here on out, this is still like a Bitcoin story at the end of the day, because of where it came from. Because Bitcoin's still here doesn't mean that there isn't going to be newfangled things that are better and stuff like that, or we can make more money on. At the end of the day, this all started with Bitcoin, and like, I always will have a respect for it. There was a time where I personally like didn't give a fuck about Bitcoin anymore. I was like, it's stupid. Like, the whole world runs around this Ethereum thing. But then I just kept going back to like, no, that's, at the end of the day, it really is about BTC. And then there's this other macro part of this where most people haven't heard about crypto. So the only crypto they've really heard about is just really like BTC. So if you want to change your world, you got to change yourself. But once you can help yourself, then you can help others. And then once you can help others, you're going to inspire through either like being such a good person, or jealousy, to become better. And so depending on the person, they work on different things, right? And I just really hope that the energy that I put out there, that I'm getting guys that are, and women that are that are in the right mindset to improve themselves. And I think that I've done that, and I'm gonna continue to do that for like as long as I fucking can, for decades if I can. You know, um, it's you know it's really like, it's one of it's and then this couldn't have been done without BTC, basically. Um, this is why like I gravitated towards like the red pill spear, basically, because these are a bunch of men that are trying to improve themselves in all aspects, right? And now, in a way, me and Charlie have become the red pill of finance. We become the financial arm of the red pill community. you know. And I just try to like put the best energy out there and just teach people. And then there's always a couple dummies, but there's always a ton of geniuses. But this is why I do it for, because even if I help out a person that I don't like in that space, at the very least, maybe because of the money that they make in the space, they won't be such a fucking asshole to their kids or their family or their other neighbors. And because of them not being cunts, they're not perpetuating that cunty energy throughout the world, or at least I've helped dampen that cunty energy. And so there's less cunts in this world and there's more better people. And then the money circulates into it. And then it just, because at the end of the day, this all shit is about like improving your life. And then because you improve your life, you end up improving the life of your children and your wife, and you have a better energy. And this puts out a better thing all throughout the world. And like, that's what I want to do in the crypto space. Yeah. I'm all about positive feedback loops, not negative feedback loops. This world needs less cunts. Definitely. So hit the notification bell, hit the like button, and let's continue on with this Bitcoin, the macro story. So as we go from here, right? So now we're in this weird sort of space now in this current cycle, right? So we've had the ups, the downs, the ups again, the downs, and now ups again. Where we've had BTC go from an asset that was $1 or less. I just call it $1. $1 to about $69,000. And now we're at 44,000. And it's this whole thing when you just take a step back. It was like there was a time when we hit $20,000 and we were in the $3,300 all-time low, $3,100 all-time low for BTC. We're in the shitter. And then people are just like, this thing's dead, this thing's dead, this thing's dead. We are now 2.2 times higher in price than the last all-time high for the other cycle, the past cycle. And because of that, it's funny, just because we've gone to this price here and we've gone down here, everyone thinks this thing's dead. And it's just like, once you've gone through enough cycles, you just learn that, like, bros, it's not dead. There's this whole thing of like this. We're in a bear market. Bear market where? Bear market where? Everyone's making money. Like now, like we got into this new cycle now, right? So basically, what happened is it was like we had such a big crash in 2017 during that bear cycle. But realistically, if things weren't really dead, it was quiet, but it wasn't dead if you were paying attention. And so you had this whole thing where like you had this whole knee-jerk reaction where it was like, fuck, holy shit, what do I do here? Like, I'm not going to invest in bullshit. I want real stuff. I want people doing real things. So you had this new breed, and you had these guys that came up in 2017 that saw how bullshit 2017 was and decided to take an entire right turn and go, you know what, I'm going to make real stuff. And now this is the first real cycle where the altcoin projects, and then on top of that too, some of the projects being built even on BTC, like Sovereign or any of these other projects or MoonPay or all these other services, we now have things that actually work. We have things that actually work now, like products that work. Like, holy shit, that's amazing. Because in 2017, nothing worked at all. The exchanges barely worked. Some say the exchanges still don't work, but things work. We had the advent of like decentralized exchanges, which was things that were originally thought of in the Bitcoin community, but were never brought to fruition just because of some limitations, which is perfectly okay. And then we ended up coming out to these dexes, and then now we have lending and borrowing protocols. So we have things like Aave, where we can take our crypto, take a loan. There's no KYC, there's no anything, there's no credit score. It's like, do you have the assets? You want to borrow money? You can. I don't care if you're black, white, purple, brown, dot, feather. It doesn't matter. That's so beautiful because there's no more discrimination. It's just about, do you have that BTC? Do you have that Ethereum? Do you have that money? And that's a much better. I think that's a bit more of a fair system. Is it perfect? No, but we're stepping in the right direction. We're stepping in the right direction. And is it early on right now? Of course it is. It always is. But this is where you make all the money. This is where you kind of revolutionize the world and stuff, through all these this is where you revolutionize this entire world. You can be your own bank. And then where did that concept come from Bitcoin? you know Not your keys, not your crypto. Of course we are going to head towards a world, right, where the world's going to be a brackish water. The world's going to be a brackish water. And what brackish water is when fresh water meets salt water, right? The fresh water is your own keys, your own crypto. But the salt water is third parties. And whether we like it or not, we still have a large portion of the population of the world that's above the age of 50 and higher. And I would even say fucking 35, really, if I'm saying 35 and longer. That it's this whole thing where they're in the banking sector. They've been their whole lives they've used JP Morgan, banks, this, that, 401ks. And it's going to take a while to get that brainwashing out. So we're hitting this crescendo of the brackish water being created, of both these sides of these systems hitting against each other, and we're fusing right now, as well as some of the older generation dying off. Sorry, but it just is what it is, and we're having over time the millennial generation is going to start taking over, and we're coming into that in this next 10 years. The millennials take over the economy completely and start dismantling the boomer infrastructure that it was, and creating the brand new infrastructure that will lead us into the next 80 years of basically glory, and realistically 60 years of things being good, the last 20 being kind of bad. And this is what happens basically. This is the larger cycles that end up happening on the macro side. Because if you look at it, when there's these great changes, the great changes is basically a generation does really cool, they stay in control, and then their ideas perpetuate for basically an entire human duration, because that's when they live, and then that's when they lose control of their keys, or their eventually be keys or reigns of control, and then it goes off to the next generation, who then creates a brand new system for their world, and then that perpetuates for a certain amount of time until that breaks, and it's completely correlated to human life. It's completely correlated to human life. The average lifespan's 67 years old, 80 years old. So of course you have this, so some things that won't die off, some things that will, but the larger system erodes 80%, and then 20% is kept, the good stuff. 80%, obviously freedom of speech and all that jazz. Some people don't have that, but right to bear arms and all that stuff, fight for those rights. But then some other things are gone, and then it's made some more simplistic and stuff with the smart contracts. And it's this whole thing of where we're kind of going in the space. Yeah, we can't stop the Great Reset. Basically, what's going on, if you ever want to know what's going to happen in the world over time, it's demographics, really, if you really look into it. The amount of people being born, the amount of people dying, and what does that story tell, basically, and what kind of struggles you can learn from that. It's not always perfect, but it's generally going to be in the right direction of where things are going to go. So through this kind of brackish water, we are in a way, I think it's going to be more of a middle ground, where we're going to have, I would say, probably 60-70% of our stuff's going to be bankless, but we're still going to have 40% centralized entities. And there's people that are going to bitch and moan about that. That's going to be the truth for at least 20-30 years. Afterwards, we may go to a completely bankless existence at that point. But I always believe there always is going to be centralized entities, because at the end of the day, what are the users? Who are the things that use crypto? It's humans. And humans were tribalistic, as you can see by the chats. We're tribalistic. We're religious. And even when we don't have religion, we make religions out of nothing. We make religions out of money. We make religions out of group. We make religions and cults of personality out of everything. So at the end of the day, because, whether you believe we came from monkeys or not, or we're just the way we are, We want leaders, and no matter what, so there's always a central point of failure in sort of human societies and stuff, where we want to, because life is so busy and there's so many things going on and there's just so much shit, we do delegate to other people who know more than us, or we believe that know more than us. So we follow leaders. So at the end of the day, whether we're a bankless world or not, even though like it's like this whole, it's a Steve Jobs effect where, Steve Jobs is doing it, I'm in that thing. Or that's what's gonna, that's where that's one of the factors there, why I think we can't ever really truly get away from decentralization, or from like a bankless sort of existence and stuff, where there's always going to be some central points of failure, because the belief system of humans, because all the systems are just ways for us to govern each other and go through like what Bitcoin created was something, that a need that we already wanted to have forever, and we used in gold, but then finally made a better version of gold. And then now some of these properties in BTC have been just transferred over into other cryptocurrencies. And it's this whole thing. It's this whole thing about needing to deal with each other. And some people say, like, is the world really a better place after all this time? Of course it is. Of course it is. Because the more efficient our money is, the more we can then actually improve our world, the efficiencies and stuff like that. Some people, I've heard people say this, like with the advent of BTC and stuff like that, like is not really going to change the financial market. At the very least, almost every single equity within the next 15 years is going to be tokenized and be traded 24/7, just off of the there's going to be we're creating all these liquidity pools and everything like that. Eventually, over time, you guys are going to be yield farming and stuff and providing liquidity for probably like it'll probably be something like USDC, Tesla, or like Tesla, Tesla coal, or it'd be like all these kind of weird, funky liquidity pools and stuff at some point in the world, and you guys would be ahead of the curve on that. It's a really interesting sort of factor and stuff. Maybe it might just go down the old order book route and stuff at the end of the day, but yeah, this is an interesting time we're going through, because we're seeing history being made right now, in the whole sort of space. So buckle up, you guys, buckle up. We're gonna take control of this whole thing, and it's gonna be a bumpy ride. They're going to use BTC to politicize it right now. Obviously, I've heard stuff about Russia that it's going to take payments in BTC. Shit, if I was Russia, I'd do the same thing. Fuck it. I mean, if I had a country, of course I would. Shit, but it's this whole thing where I would just take whatever valuable assets I could take from my resources, so then I could use that income to do stuff with it. Of course, if the leader's like fucking making war and shit, that sucks. But it just is what it is. At the end of the day, um, I do believe in terms of longer term, like the dollar is still going to be in control, no matter what, because it's a sort of like we're going to get sort of a mismatch between like crypto and dollar for basically ever, until eventually the dollar does take. I mean, the crypto does take it over basically, but because people would trust crypto more because it seems more fair than the dollar. But if you look at the dollar versus the rest of the currencies around the world, no one trusts that shit. You're gonna take the ruble. Are you going to take the Indian currency? Are you going to take the rupee? Are you going to take the RMB? You're going to take the Chinese currency? That's wild. And like it does, but here's the thing too: is like the people are saying the dollar is going to collapse soon. Into what? If the dollar collapses, we'll send the whole world into war again. Like there's this whole misconception that like what really backs the dollar? It's our fucking military. It's the United States' military and our war machine. The fucking euro. No one trusts the Europeans will fucking go into war before that shit happens. Because like if you look at that, I mean, if you look through history and stuff, I mean, in the modern history, like almost all wars are started through Europe and shit. I mean, it's you know, it's this whole. I mean, it's this whole thing where if the United States were to pull out its military bases and its protections that it's doing for the, and this is where because people don't understand this part of it is that like the United States, the way the system of the United States has done, how the United States has done, the United States has kept forcefully through like menacing, through arms and military and ships and stuff, is to keep trading afloat and keep people like I don't care that you think that guy's a cunt. You're not going to blow up this fucking ship, and you're going to allow trade to happen. Do you understand? Okay. And if the United States isn't there to allow that to happen, you're gonna have the economies of the world sort of like break off into pieces, and you're gonna have world trade kind of collapse, and that's gonna be net bad for most people. So and then on top of that, right, the rest of the world has been relying, like, whether you believe all the propaganda you want and stuff, the whole world's been using has been vastly reliant on the United States' military, right? So if what ends up happening is if the United States pulls its military out, then the rest of the country starts spending money on building their militaries up. When everyone's building their militaries up, there's going to be a problem, and then it becomes a powder keg, and then there's bullshit that's going to happen, basically. So and then at the same time too, people think that, like, if the United States, like, and this is not PC to say, but if the United States pulled out all their stuff, you know, if you look at Chinese history, right? Because everyone's scared of the big bad Chinese current of the big Chinese, government or whatever, right? If the United States pulled out all their military and just allowed everyone to be cunts and fight each other, like, I think if you look through Chinese history, the longest time that the Chinese people have been together as one nation has been under U.S. rule. Before that, I think they've only been together a combined throughout their entire history of mainland China. They've only been combined as a country for 2 years, over what, 5,000 years, 2 years. And this whole thing about, the dollar and the USA being a necessary evil is because the rest of the world's even a bigger cunts. That's crazy to believe. I mean, people think, like, that's like, like, if you look at what the United States does, we do some cunty shit, like, legitimately. Like, I'm not proud of some of the stuff we do sometimes, but if you see what the rest of the world would do, oh my god, like, the world has been a better place with the dollar and the United States government being under control than any time in human history. Like, the amount of prosperity the dollar and the United States government has created is insane, which is the United States people for being in control, from keeping these fucking animals, the rest of the world, from acting like fucking animals. Not saying that there isn't horrible shit that's being done, but, like, the world is largely a safer place. And now crypto is going to allow even a better version of that. So it's sort of this thing where we kind of do need the United States to be in control, but on top of that, we're allowing crypto to allow people to move their money around, which makes the world even a better place. And it's going to disempower bad governments and people over time. That's the way I see it, right? Um, right? I mean, you want to know some funny shit? Like, right now, the United States is allowing, Japan right now to rearm itself and stuff. And Japan hates fucking China really badly. And if I'd had to bet money between, if I had to bet money between Sony or Foxconn, I put my money on Sony of who's going to build stuff. But it's that whole thing. Like, it's this, if you look at the whole, if you look at the whole South China Sea and stuff like that, where the whole, like, all the neighbors hate them, basically. So, things are, things are interesting. Yeah, I never understood this. Like, I'm a Bitcoiner, I'm a crypto person through and through, but I'm also an American, and I believe in America. And I'm not very happy at some of the things that's happened in politics and stuff. And hopefully one day I can get wealthy enough where I can then change that at some point. Maybe DCC for president. 2028, 2032, or something like that. But or a governor or something, or I'll find a way to weasel my way in to make the world a better place and stuff like that. But definitely. Let's see, Tweety. For people that have started investing this year, would they be on the adoption curve? We're still early adopters, I would say. Are we like the earliest innovators? No, but we're still at things. Things aren't perfect and they're not easy. We haven't hit that Apple moment yet with, like, cryptocurrencies, where it's like, it's so easy, even a monkey could do it. So it's that sort of thing too, as well as yeah, we're still pretty early on. We're not as early as we were, but the thing is like, in terms of, like, these exponential growth patterns of the gains we can make, we got a good solid 10 years. We got 10 years. I don't expect the crypto space to slow down in terms of the growth for until maybe like 2033, something like that. That's kind of from what I'm seeing in terms of how much people are starting to get into the space. And eventually, what will happen is basically we're going to hit this point when we hit 20%. 25% of the population will slow down a bit, and then the last 5 years we'll go up to 20, we'll go up to 40% of the world population using cryptocurrencies in some capacity, and then from there it slows down, right? Because if you look at the larger sort of world in terms of like internet adoption, we're right now at maybe mid 70s, maybe 80% of the world has access to internet, maybe. That's still not the after all that time. Like what the internet's been around what, since the 50s, 70s, maybe the early 90s commercially and stuff. So it's like, and how many people around the world have phones? Like a lot of people, but not everybody, right? So it's this whole thing where like you hit that point where we hit 40% of the population, because the limiting factor of cryptocurrency for the most part is, I would say, internet and phones, right? So you do need a certain level of connection and stuff, but they are inventing sort of things where it uses a more of a lower grade stuff and everything, and people are very, very resourceful, right? I mean, you have people in Africa with impaseta, where people are they essentially, like, a lot of the people of Africa, like, essentially made their own cryptocurrency before cryptocurrency, where they're trading, they're trading phone minutes as money, because that's more reliable than their own local currencies, funny enough. So yeah, it's it's that sort of thing, basically. So just to get back to the crypto or Bitcoin, the macro story, right? So now we've entered into this phase that we're in currently, where everything works. I believe that the top of this cycle hasn't been hit yet. We'll hit this sort of new top in the next year and some change. $100,000 BTC or higher, probably $250,000 BTC. That's kind of what I'm thinking, more or less. But at the bare minimum, it would be like $133,000 Bitcoin price would be kind of like where I think we'd actually have the first acceptable real top, and then we get a bear market. So what will happen is, from this cycle, the people who get rich and do pretty well, or at least have like the ideas from this cycle, on the next cycle, which will be an evolution. So the guys who win from this cycle will take the ideas and the things that they learn from this cycle of products that work. So we're going to get all the products that worked, square them together, and make into a new product. So the next cycle is going to be the big innovator cycle. This is where we get the normies, a ton of the normies. And this is where we're going to get that first 10, 15% of the population in on the next cycle. Right. So if we're in 2022, let's just say the top is somewhere between late this year to middle of 2023. Right. So if I'm looking at my calendar right now, 2023. So that means the site will bottom out somewhere in 24, and then in 25 we're rocketing back up 26, 27, with probably being the top, somewhere in that range. So at 20, we're going to have a nice crypto run from 25 to 27. That 25 to 27 is going to be this thing of just taking all this stuff we're doing in crypto, like yield farming and doing this and processes and phone apps. We're probably going to get Apple or one of the major phone carriers to start adopting crypto at that point and stuff. So what's going on right now is that in the 2017 cycle, I do believe that we had this coercion from the United States government, as well as governments around the world, as well as like corporations that knew, like, holy fuck, this thing's growing too fast. We don't want it to explode without us. That they intentionally try to bastardize it and snooter the Bitcoin cycle and the larger crypto cycle, so they can get in, so they can put their stuff in, so they can let the normies in. So they're like, holy crap, this thing's gonna leave without us. Because in 2017, even though some of them were early on, there wasn't that many of them in the cycle yet. And they're like, this was like what was going on in 2017, where we knew that most of the cryptocurrencies were owned by people, not corporations, people. There was this whole thing, where you did have a couple corporations here and there and stuff, but it wasn't as many. Now you have a lot more corporations, you have a lot more entities and DAOs and things just coming out and stuff. But it's just that sort of thing, basically, where they're coming in, they're putting the clause in, and then the stuff right now we're in the alpha. We're in the alpha phase right now, and we're like, everything works, as well as people like us are going to make enough money that we're going to start our own projects on the next cycle, and we're going to get a huge, because this cycle has basically been VC smart retail. Even if you think some of the guys in right now are dumb motherfuckers who bought Doge and do all that shit, they're still the fuckers who got in this cycle. The early NFT guys and everything like that. So what's going to happen is our 20. This is basically what I'm saying is this cycle right here is 2013, 2015. Our 2014, 2015. 2013 to 15, 16, whatever you want to call it. The next cycle is going to be our 2017. The 2017 cycle was a retail dominated fucking FOMO fest. So it's very possible that when these products go live in the next cycle, when we get into the new all-time highs, it is going to be an unbelievable vertical candle. That means in the next cycle, we are going to hit $1 million on BTC. At the very least, we're going to hit something at $500,000 to $800,000 on BTC. Just extrapolate that out, and then imagine the crypto prices for everything else that survives after this crash, which I do believe most of the things that we're in right now, because it fucking works, are going to survive. This is a very, very strange cycle where half of the L1s are going to die, but half of them are going to survive. So the phantoms, the pulses, the Ethereums, the BTC, all these things are going to survive and they get better. And then you're going to have this huge adoption curve where people are jumping in, and we're going to get this fucking, it's going to be a 6-month, 8-month fucking run that is just going to blow our socks away, that we don't know where the top is. And when you have something like that, that's where you get a correction of biblical proportions, and you actually get a 2017 death crash where a lot of things die. And of course, during the peak of that, you're going to start getting bullshit, stuff that works, but it's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to be sort of amazing and stuff. So this is why during these sort of times you have to pay attention to see what works, what's surviving, and you make money in a bull market, you get rich in a bear market, and then the next cycle you get wealthy. So, but you also got to remember, the box, right? My box, right? Who's the leader? Charismatic leader. Does it have a community? What does it do? Who are the major investors? These are the things you have to look out for and stuff like that, as well as the main thing when things are in the shitter, when things are fucking dead as fuck, when things are just down on their luck. What do you look for? Is the leader still around? Is he still doing stuff? Outside of Bitcoin, obviously. Is the community still there? Is there still a community, or have they not given up, or they're still working? Boom. There it is right there. You take a shot on those. That's what I did. And this entire thing comes back like a phoenix. And we rocket back up, with BTC more than likely leading the charge, because that's typically what happens at the beginning of these cycles in these bull markets. And that's what I truly believe what's going to happen basically in this next sort of cycles and stuff. And you're going to start on the next cycle. We're probably going to start this cycle. We're not seeing it. We're seeing a bit of the bones. Next cycle, we're actually going to start seeing actual real DeFi actually being built on BTC. Next cycle, not this cycle. Next cycle. There's going to be things that have to be adopted to the Bitcoin code and stuff, which I think probably will happen at some point. But this is a larger sort of thing. But the real story, or the macro story, what the real macro story of Bitcoin is it's the little asset that could go from nothing to something, to go to truly something. If we hit that, if Bitcoin hits that $1 million, or even there's people even in the financial markets are still not even taking this seriously. When this thing goes to a couple $100,000, $500,000 per asset, per coin, we hit the big leagues, and then we start absorbing other markets' entire economic energy and eating them. And this is where, over these next 10 years, we'll grow very fast. We'll slow down a little bit, and then we'll just gobble up the rest of the world. But we'll still be able to, through a cycle, you'll still be able to make a 2, 3, 4x on the portfolio. And of course, that's on the larger portfolio, on the larger macro coins. On the other stuff, you're always going to have 10,000x, maybe 5,000x, 1,000x, 100x shit coins that we're going to do really well on, and then some of them will survive and then we'll be fine. But there's always going to be a speculative market, even in equities. There's these crazy coins, but it took equities damn near 80 years to get to the point where people are like, woo, 20%, oh my god, we're killing it, you guys. And BTC is the vehicle that we use because it's the story. It has the story because why like I keep harping back to the story instead of Bitcoin the macro story. But what Bitcoin's the macro story is, it's the lotto ticket for most people. What it is, but it's and you guys are here right now, and you guys are understanding the space, and you're investing, you're getting your toes in GameFi and the Pulse chain ecosystem and all this other stuff and everything like that. Phantom ecosystem. But it's the macro story because it's like if you could have bought a Bitcoin back and blah 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 this, you would have this. Wow, holy crap! It creates the gold rush in a way. And then what did the gold rush do? It ended up creating, this entire sort of like state, and then it bled into the oil fields, and then just then created in California, basically, if you know how that all that jazz worked and stuff like that. So it creates something pretty wonderful, and it improves a lot of lives. And if you think about a macro of Bitcoin, a macro story is like what Bitcoin's doing is it's going to allow people, like there's a large portion of this world that don't have access to financial services at all. They don't have banks, they don't have anything, they can't borrow or lend. And for most of us in the first world, we do have access to some of these things, maybe not to the access that we would like, which is nice. So we're kind of giving ourselves really the top level sort of stuff that's going on, right? We're now being allowed, like us, even something like, obviously I'm drink, but like even a product like Celsius, right? It's a centralized entity and stuff. Not the drink, but both of them actually are, but the centralized entity of something like a Celsius, where you're able to put your assets on there, take a loan, and you can get tax-free money because it's your own money, and start doing things that are only allowed for funds that have $25 million to the hands of the normal person. This stuff was not available for. It was only some of the stuff that we're doing right now was only available to the uber rich, and now it's being democratized and given out to the smart retail, smart VCs, the early people, which are the people that are here right now. That's incredible. And then we're going to give this to the rest of the world. Is there going to be a bunch of bumps and bruises along the way? Of course. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, and it's going to suck, and there's going to be horrible things, and there's going to be hacks, and there's bullshit, but the world is heading in the right direction. Up and to the right, baby. That's where we're heading. I'm an optimist. I'm a glass half full. And that's how I choose to view the world, and that's how I'll always choose to view the world. Doesn't mean that I won't get knocked down sometimes, and I will feel bad, but I'm always going to end up going in right. You want to be a 1%er? You're here now. You're a 1%er. Because there's probably like 2-3% of the population of the world that's in cryptocurrencies, and like 80% of them are bullshitting with less than $1,000. So you got more than $1,000, you're already in the top 20%. And if you're already wheeling and dealing on multi chains and stuff like that, and investing in this and this, getting into sacrifice phases, buying this on Uniswap, if you're wheeling and dealing, then you're fucking in. You're a 1%er, dudes. You're 1%ers. And this larger Bitcoin macro story is we're going to change the whole world and make it into a much better and fairer system. And we're going to bring a ton of people out of poverty. But that first leads into some chaos. And it's that whole thing, chaos as a ladder. So off of that chaos, then we'll restructure institutions, and then we'll actually be able to have some actual really good times, because the people that are going to take control of this world are going to be people that are me or you guys are a little younger, and we're going to make this world a better place. And that's what I truly, truly, truly believe is, and that really think that's what Bitcoin is. It's the hope. And with this hope, we try to get rich with it first, but we're eventually going to do. It is going to be a much better world. It's going to be more. It's going to be more about what you can do versus who you are really, or who your parents are. But it's still because of the way, and this is one, just to kind of say this, my last sort of piece on this is, um we're all going to have more of a fair shake. It's going to be like we're all going to have an even chance to succeed, but we're not all going to succeed. We can now because we're early. We're here right now. You're paying attention. The competition's low. We can win, and you guys have the right mentalities for it. But what's going to happen in the future is, the way these systems, the way the world is the way it is. Why there is in sort of these pyramids and stuff where like the 1%ers, the 5%ers, is because of how the biology is of males and females at the end of the day. And like I think most of the people, and even in economics, don't really understand this because and even in demographics, really, and you think in demographics about, boys and girls and stuff like that, about kids and babies, is because the way this thing works is, you know, all women want to be with, like, well, typically men and women want to be with the top 20% of the population, right? In terms of looks, money, this prestige, and all that jazz. And that means, like, not everyone can be. So it's a sort of thing where, you're gonna have a lot of winners, and you're gonna have some people losers. But at the end of the day, the whole system is better at the end of the day. But even with the better system, you're still gonna have classes of, like, this person's more famous than me than not famous than me, because we intentionally group ourselves in that way to compete, so we can, for the attention of females, basically, for the and it just is what it is, you know. And unless we change human nature to, like, not be like that, not be hypergamous and stuff like that, in terms of always trying to get the better, we always are going to put ourselves in the position where, like, I actually think, like, the overall the world's gonna be better, but you're always going to have people complaining against, like, oh, it's not as fair and stuff like that and everything like that, because you're gonna you want to some men and some women are going to work harder to be at those top places and stuff, so they have that ability. But what I think the world's going to be better is that you're going to have more of a chance to actually do that if you're actually exceptional. Yeah, hierarchies are natural and stuff, and people don't have to. Man, there's some people like, oh, I don't give a fuck and all this and stuff, and I'm not working for that. That's fine, you don't have to. But the rest of the world, like, it's a sort of thing that the 80% makes the rules for the rest, whether we like it or not. You can have exceptions to the rules, but if 80% of the entire population of the humans are kind of working on these rules, whether they know it or not, then that's the way the world's going to end up being, regardless. So I'll end that with that. Shout out to Sailor Moon. Hit the like and subscribe button, and that's Bitcoin the macro story, man. We're gonna change this world, and at a Bitcoin at a time, man. So peace. Shout out, you guys, and I will be streaming more earlier from now on. I'll be streaming mostly between probably 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So be on the lookout, you guys.